Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at some more housing data, specifically number of homes for sale and how there are now $700 billion worth of listings currently on the market, which is an all-time high. So if you like this video, subscribe for more and let's get straight into some of the data. So this is the breaking news out of Redfin earlier this week, where a record $700 billion worth of listings are currently on the market. So I want to take a look at active listings, median days on market, and kind of see where the inventory is increasing the most, because it certainly isn't all over the country. So let's briefly look at this and we'll take a look at some of the charts. So $330 billion worth of listings have been sitting on the market for 60 days or longer. So that tells me that days on market has been increasing pretty substantially overall. And if you take a look at the chart, you can see that this is the highest it's ever been, at least since the data started being tracked. Now, I did confirm that it is higher than the financial crisis of 2008, when there were almost no buyers jumping into the market. However, we all know that this is because home values have appreciated substantially more since that period of time. So let's take a look briefly at this. US housing market has nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers, which is the most on record. And Redfin is now anticipating home values will start declining because of this. There are now 33% more sellers in the market than buyers, and at no other point in records dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers this much. In other words, it's a buyer's market. And we are going to take a look at some inventory in other states, as this is not happening in all of the country. So when you see headlines like prices are going to start declining, housing market correction around the corner, it will happen in a lot of the country, but pockets of the country are still performing very well. So first of all, the overall housing market, if we take a look at active listings, although it is up quite a lot since 2022, when we had that enormous housing market crunch where there were basically no homes available for sale in a lot of the desirable areas, you can still see we are below the historic average that we saw in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, so pre-pandemic housing market. Yes, 960,000 homes on the market is a lot more than it was back in 2022 when we had 346,000 homes on the market. But still, we are below the historic average. So if this does start to get up to these levels, then you'll likely see more price cuts happening in all of the country. But as of right now, a lot of the areas having record high inventory, having a lot of homes get price reductions, having days on market increase is not necessarily in every single state, it's just in some states. And one of those states is Texas. If we take a look at housing inventory in Texas, you can see inventory has skyrocketed. 123,000 homes on the market relative to 32,000 homes back in 2022. And it is indeed higher than the pre-pandemic levels. 2019, we had 106,000 homes on the market. 2018, 104, 2017, 105. And this doesn't look like it's going to be going down anytime soon. So let's take a look at California, which is not seeing the levels like we see in Texas. California inventory is up to 65,000 homes on the market, and it had 22,000 homes in 2022. But you can see pre-pandemic, 82,000 homes, 86,000 homes, 84,000 homes. California is not seeing the level in demand destruction like you're seeing in Texas, as well as Florida. As you can see, is having a huge inventory surge, more so than Texas. 182,000 homes on the market in Florida, up from 35,000 in 2022. That is, what is that, 5x inventory increase in a matter of 3 years. So a lot of Florida is absolutely going to have price cuts. You're going to see days on market skyrocketing in this state as well as in Texas, and it's already happening. I'll probably make a separate video on Florida because it definitely is something that needs to be paid attention to. And you can see in 2016, 130,000, 2019, it got as high as 150,000, but now with 182,000 homes on the market, you are 100% going to see a correction in Florida as well as Texas, because there's not enough buyers to keep up with the amount of homes that are hitting the market. And if you look at days on market for the overall United States, it is in a steady uptrend. So when you look at headlines out of Redfin, like $700 billion worth of homes on the market and 500,000 more sellers compared to buyers, you also need to take a look at the median days on market, because that is going to be indicative of whether or not a housing correction is around the corner. And what's interesting is you can see days on market skyrockets without fail at the end of every single year. You can see January 2025, 73 days, 70 days in 24, in 2023, 72 days. Even in 2022, when we had the lowest inventory in history, 59 days on market. And you can see the historic average going back to all of these years, 88 days on market, 83 days on market toward the end of the year. And then every single time during the first half of the year, days on market plummets because more buyers are stepping into the market. And that's exactly what's happened in 2025. Days on market is now 50, but it is higher than this time last year. Last year was 45 days. The year before that was 43 days. In 2022, it was 30 days. So we are seeing a steady increase in days on market, which is to be expected as inventory has also been increasing in the overall country. So when you talk about a potential housing correction, record amount of homes being available for sale, you also have to look at your specific market. It's going to be very location dependent as to whether or not a housing correction, housing crash does in fact happen. You have to take a look at the jobs market in your area. Where I live, for example, Orange County, California, unemployment rate has actually been going down for the last year. So there are a lot of companies hiring in this location. And there's not a lot of new builds going on where I live as well, which definitely impacts the housing market. I'll make a separate video on new construction. So if you're interested, subscribe for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think these headlines out of Redfin, $700 billion worth of real estate currently for sale, record amount of sellers relative to buyers in the current market, do you think all of these headlines are potentially indicating that we might see some sort of housing correction? Or is this just going to be a trend back to a normal market? I'll definitely be uploading my thoughts, my opinions on the overall market, kind of see where we're going to be headed. And I will be uploading weekly videos diving into the housing data, letting you know what's going on in specific locations. So if you're interested, subscribe for that, and I'll see you in my next video.